Alright, welcome once again. I promise this time it's for real. I've got all the replays, all the games have already been played, so we got to go through the tournament and cast it. Thank you all for your patience. Yeah, I was having some desync issues yesterday spectating. The mod itself is fine. Just maybe my mod didn't update, or I don't know what exactly, but I've gone and manually updated the mod just to make sure I have the most up-to-date version. Got the replays here, so we should be all set and ready to present for you guys. So let's jump straight in. I did not prepare a bracket, but yeah, we've got first up Cool Umbrella versus Konos Major. Yeah, let's just go with Konos. Let's go with that, and it's Beastmen versus Khorne. Of course, we're doing blind picks. There is bans, of course, and blind picks, so that resulted in this, which is super interesting builds on both sides. I do understand sort of not bringing Aurochs. Actually, I don't know. Does Khorne have actual fire resistance? I forget sometimes. But let's see here. For the builds, before we get started, I've got Doom Bull here, Bloodbrute Behemoth, and some Minotaur's Griffins for Beastmen, Poison Warhounds, lots of Centaurs, and Ungor Spears, along with a Brave Shaman of Beasts for Khorne. An Exalted Bloodthirster as the Lord up in the air is going to be very tough to deal with. 3 Minotaurs with great weapons as well. Of course, the Khorne Minotaurs having Frenzy and Armor does make them superior to the Beastmen variant, spell resistance and whatnot. Actually, you can compare them side by side here and see that, yes, they get that Frenzy, the extra armor, spell resistance, so quite a lot going for them. And then, of course, Marauders of Khorne and some Marauder Horsemen, Fleshhounds out on the flanks. Let's get things rolling here. The Minotaurs versus Minotaurs, nice to see. But the question is, which Minotaurs will prevail? There's a lot of these Khorne Minotaurs here, and the armor does make enough of a difference. It's still not very efficient for them to trade against low-tier spears, but certainly much more efficient than the Beastmen. Only have, what, 35 armor, so literally double the armor for not that much more cost, which is pretty significant. I would say the buff to Minotaurs probably was more effective for Khorne. Hard to say, really, but what's up? See Loopy here in the chat. Creator and collator of the mod here that we're using today makes quite a bit of changes. I'm not going to go through everything, but just generally does quite a bit to help balance the game out. But so far, both players are playing very patiently. Got all these Marauder Horsemen in here with throwing axes, looking to get at some high-value targets. But Minotaur's just kind of lurking here, trying to protect Doom Bull. Honestly, Khorne could probably just bull rush in here with the Marauders engaged on the Ungor Spearmen, but we're on the Central Chaos Waste map, and the fog giving me a little bit of FPS issues, I think, but also this little cliff side here is sort of preventing Khorne from bringing their full formation to bear in like a nice big surround right now. So that does mean the Beastmen hopefully can get some isolated engagements here a little bit late with the Doom Bull and the Bloodbrute Behemoth. In terms of punishing the Bloodthirster, he probably was going to be able to get back up in the air there. And the Fleshhounds also potentially overextending, but keep in mind these Marauder Horsemen will absolutely crump Poison Warhounds with their anti-infantry, high charge, huge weapon strength. They're going to be very effective in melee against all of this Beastmen infantry and hounds and stuff. So anyway, big pitch melee engagement. You see that dazed effect, lowering the melee defense pretty significant there. Those low-tier spears will make even better contact, but the naked golden Minotaurs of this Beastmen faction versus the nice red armored Minotaurs of Khorne. Engagement certainly is going okay initially for the Beastmen. They're actually doing a lot of damage to these Minotaurs here as the Bloodbrute trades fairly efficiently. The Doom Bull also got super juiced up here with his Barbed Knuckles and Deadly Onslaught. The Beastmen Minotaurs also didn't really get directly in this blob, get too surrounded by the enemy Minotaurs, so they're able to fight with support fairly effectively. The Marauders get terrified pretty quickly. And so far, it's actually looking pretty decent for the Beastmen, but we'll see. The Bloodbrute's taking a lot of damage from the Exalted Bloodthirster right now. huge amounts of damage, and if it takes too much burst, then it won't be able to heal, which a lot of the power of the Bloodroot comes from the fact that it can heal so much. Massive healing pool, in terms of cap space. But right now being punished pretty hard, despite the Doomble's best efforts too, kind of contributing 2v1 here. Eventually the Beastmen's just kind of run out of steam. The Ungor Spearmen end up fleeing the field as well, and the Bloodroot just gets handled by this Exalted Bloodthirster, which is pretty interesting. Maybe the Doomball wasn't 100% focused on the Bloodthirster the whole time, but Wiston's Wildform also trying to increase the weapon strength there. Throwing axes making some decent contact, and maybe they'll be able to take down the Bloodthirster, but it's definitely looking pretty grim with all of these Khorne Horsemen still alive, and a lot of the support units for the Beastmen that would potentially be able to help also getting fairly low. This one healthy Ungor Spearman might be able to get in and get some work done. Let's see. Getting close here. There's still some Khorne Minotaurs critically as well, providing some heavy mass presence. Poor Doombull's going to get fully surrounded now, and without support, I think even as it is, Exalted Bloodthirster was still at 3,000 HP. Could maybe finish him off. Hard to say, but like we're going to have a Sword of Khorne dropped here. That blade just doing a ton of damage to those Centaurs with throwing axes. Out in the periphery, Fleshhounds just chasing routing units. Doing a great job getting some value for Khorne here. But yeah, Doombull. I love the pick of Doombull, actually. That dazed contact effect, I think, is fairly underrated. And it does offer him quite a bit of support potential. But in a situation like this, that's going to end up getting fairly well punished as he gets soloed out by the Exalted Bloodthirster with Deathbringer active, up to 871 weapon strength, just a few hits, and of course the Minotaur supporting as well. We'll have something to say about that. So initially looked pretty good for the Beastmen, but that Exalted Bloodthirster is just so nasty. And yeah, I mean, even value-wise, didn't get that much, but just the terror and presence is a lot to have to deal with. Certainly was able to outtrade the Bloodroot bit there. And a Minotaur's one unit does pay for themselves for Khorne. On the flip side, for the Beastmen, the sort of all their high-value units don't quite pay back in terms of damage output. Kind of interesting to me. The Ungor Spearman definitely pretty solid overall, but yeah, I don't know if he'd be able to protect like Ungor Raiders or something in this matchup, but it's definitely interesting to see this. I don't know. If Cool Umbrella were here in the chat right now, I'd ask him, why this guy instead of Torox. I guess I could go look. I don't think the Khorne guys have fire resistance. I think that's mostly just high elves. Could be wrong about that. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on. I'll go ahead and update the scoreboard here, and we will move next to replay. Yeah, Khorne versus Beastmen is actually not a matchup I've seen a ton, so it is pretty interesting to watch, I'll be honest. Two kind of more rush-oriented factions. I almost wonder with Beastmen if you go really monster-centric, and I don't know, against this, though, for Khorne, all that Minotaur power is just tough. It's tough to deal with. Okay, there's that. Excellent, and then let's load into the next game. Here we are, Cool Umbrella rocking the Skaven against Konos Slaanesh. That's right, folks. Slaanesh coming at you live. I guess not technically live, but it is kind of live. And against Skaven, interesting matchup as well. The speed of Slaanesh does give Skaven some significant problems. The Skaven build is pretty interesting. I mean, I know with some of the changes to the mod, I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look. I believe there were some changes to the Poison Wind Globes. But we got the Exalted Keeper of Secrets and a whole mess of Devoted Marauders. Regiment of Renown, Exalted Keeper of Secrets as well. The Marquis of Masochism, very cool. Got some Devoted Marauders over here and Hellstriders. Yeah, lots of cheap stuff. So 2 big expensive single entities and then tons of cheap stuff to support them. Definitely makes sense. Ikit Claw's coming in on foot, which is an aggressive choice for sure. I don't know if this is 100% on purpose. Technically, he does have this flamethrower attack, which on paper does a lot of damage. I don't know. In practice, I don't... yeah, globes get more expensive. That's what I thought, which is, I think, the right call. Instead, he's brought these death globes, which should also be very good. But looks like supporting with a couple of rat ogres here, including the pit fighters, teeth breakers, We've got some Stormvermin with halberds. Yeah, there's a couple of issues here. The number one thing is kind of have a lack of summoning, number one. Slaanesh doesn't do great against attrition oftentimes, so if you can kind of grind it out like with summons or a plague furnace, it'd be pretty solid. I mean, certainly this Slaanesh build with these two expensive armor-piercing, fast single entities does have enough speed and power to try and take down some of those armored single entities of the Skaven, like the Plague Furnace, but I would definitely still bring it, even in light of that, and then just kind of rely on your missiles. Shoot those big targets when they dive inevitably onto your Plague Furnace and whatnot, but right now both players very patient. Yeah, Slaanesh getting a nice full surround here, and the Skaven army's just a little bit thin to try and protect this value of ranged units. This is what, like 3,000 points worth of ranged units right here. Might not seem like all that much in the grand scheme of things, considering the total army value, but in fact, against Slaanesh, it's going to be close to impossible, especially with Furies. I mean, we get a nice little Howling Warp Gale here. Teeth Breakers are turning to fire, but Slaanesh might be able to find a gap here. It looks like the Rat Ogres are able to defend against the Hellstriders at least momentarily. The Hellstriders can honestly probably just commit to that engagement, do pretty well, all things considered, especially with the Marquis of Masochism now charging in the side. Rattling guns do manage to shred some of the Furies out of the air. At least one unit goes down, but all of that for one unit of Furies, and then just mass collapse directly onto the Teeth Breakers. No Howling Warp Gale will be able to protect them from all that. Phantasmagoria also just pins them in straight up. So pretty nasty stuff. We also get a Cleansing Ruin, I believe. Hard to say. No, Warpquake. Yeah, Cleansing Ruin. But between the Warpquake and the Cleansing Ruin, that is going to do quite a bit of AoE damage to this blob, actually, and will just nuke a bunch of these low model count units. But with Skaven losing a lot of their range tools, I don't know if they're going to have enough stopping power to finish off these two Keepers of Secrets. Especially if they manage to come in here and snipe Picket Claw, which is a distinct possibility, definitely. We're going to see another Phantasmagoria. I believe one earlier is a bound Phantasmagoria from the Regiment of Renown, if I remember correctly. Yep, has that hard snare, which is actually quite strong in the grand scheme of things. Hard snares, even though Slaanesh is a missile faction, can't necessarily use it the same as other factions might be able to, although arguably factions with high charge use it just as well. So interesting to see that double hard snare there just to clean up a ton of value, and despite the Skaven punching back huge on that magic damage, being able to nuke a number of units, Furies are eventually going to run out of steam, and the Stormvermin will come back, but the Stormvermin are not enough. Their leadership is too poor. They're just not going to get the job done in terms of actually being able to kill these secrets, I don't think, especially with the speed. The Keepers of Secrets being able to just cycle charge here. Plenty of Devoted Marauders still alive as well. So, looking pretty rough. Looking pretty rough so far. If after this game, I'll link the mod. I forgot to post it in the mod description, or in the video description down below. But let's see here. Picket Claw's been firing for quite a bit of time. I'm just curious. I mean, he has got quite a bit of value. A lot of that is probably from Cleansing Ruin. But, yeah, we'll see. We shall see. So far, things are looking pretty grim for the Skaven. A lot of their units kind of just over-blobbing in right now. And both the Keepers of Secrets not really taking much damage. Both of them are going to have this Feasting on Fear, which will give them regeneration via low leadership units, which, of course, against Skaven is going to be like most of their units. So even though it's like a small trickle heal over time, it still is significant enough, especially with these lower health single entities like the Keepers of Secrets. It certainly will be enough to contribute in the course of a long battle like this. Earlier I said Slaanesh is not great at attrition. Against the low leadership faction, though, they can be. They're able to take great advantage of that ability. Another big Cleansing Ruin going to go off here. Will do a huge amount of damage, but it's going to be a last-ditch effort by Picket Claw to try and win this. Not going to be enough to save him personally. And honestly, Slaanesh just kind of just playing with their food at this point. Konos in a decisive position here. take the win and move on to the final. Love the use of this specific Regiment of Renown here in this matchup. Not to mention, of course, as a monster, it does have a missile block chance. Not a huge one, but still. Missile block chances are relatively rare on large single entities, so the fact that it does have one, even if it's only 20%, is decent. I mean, you still don't want it getting shot by missiles pretty much at all if you can help it, but there's something there. Yeah, really interesting game. Both of these single entities for Slaanesh just cleaning up a huge amount of value. Of course, the Exalted Keeper casting lots of spells as well. Yeah, the Elves Striders seem a little bit more balanced. I don't remember. I'd have to look. I don't remember if they got stat changes and cost changes or what exactly, but interesting stuff there. And then the Devoted Marauders also contributing nicely. For Cool Umbrella, I mean, I like Kick Claw with the Flensing Rune, considering how cheap he probably is with this loadout. It makes a lot of sense, but I still think probably you want summons in the matchup. It's hard to say. But the missile units ended up just being a little bit of a loss because it didn't protect them. So maybe also just bring like some Hell Pits or something in this matchup. I don't know, something to sustain and fight other big single entities. Definitely an interesting matchup. So with that, Cool Umbrella is going to... Oh, I totally input the scores wrong, by the way, which is, you know, pretty typical of in this situation. So there you go. Kronos wins the series 2-0, which means we'll move on to the next one. Let me just get the scoreboard switched over here, and I'll be right back. Okay, just to simplify things, I'm not going to be putting the factions on the scoreboard, but kind of into it from who's home and who's away on who's on which side of the screen. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look here. We've got High Elves versus Dark Elves. Of course, Boujalicious coming in with the Dark Elves. He's got Supreme Sorceress of Shadows, Blackguard, some Blackguard Corsairs up front, Dread Spears, Scourge Runner Chariots out on the side, Dark Riders with shields, a Master up in the air. So nice, wide, balanced army for the Dark Elves. For the High Elves, Archmage of Life on a Dragon, strong choice. Rangers up front, Archers as well, White Lions. We've also got some Silver Helms in the back. Your main company as well, Illyrian Reavers. So relatively well-balanced High Elf build also. Yeah, really hard to say who's going to have an advantage here, if anyone. But let's take a look here. Lore of Shadows, rockin' Melkos and Pit of Shades. Enfeebling Foe, Lore of Life with Dwellers Below and Earthblood. So pretty interesting stuff. Scourge Runner Chariots might run some hit-and-run charges here, and in this trade, I think it's advantageous to the Corsairs due to their armor. But let's see. Not often we get to see two elf units just clean clash like this. Dual hand weapons just dueling the death here in the open field. Rangers are going to forward pressure, kind of get caught by those Corsairs, and yeah, as expected, it does go pretty well for the Blackguard Corsairs. Not the best trade for the Rangers. bolt the Scourge Runner's bolt throwers are also doing quite a bit of damage to that Archmage, a little enfeebling foe, and the Master's hunting her with his anti-large AP damage. But in response, we see a beautiful Dwellers Below placement. Going to hit this unit of Corsairs. Also do some significant damage to the Scourge Runner chariots, I would think. Yeah, so far looking pretty even, though. Bleak Swords initially trading okay against the Rangers with support, but now the White Lions are getting involved. White Lions should just crump those Black Ark Corsairs, no problem. But the Dark Elves critically are kind of able to maintain their missile line, but ooh, a nice breath attack just wrecks one Corsair there. A little bit of an Earthblood to heal as well, and the Archmage is going to have to stay on the move, given the Scourge Runners just constantly pressuring with that missile DPS. There's also some nice missile DPS coming in on the high-value Puremain Company, but I think, yeah, Archmage starting to get towards the maximum range, kind of pull those Scourge Runner chariots away, but still has to be careful of the Master. Some supporting archers here can put a little bit of fire into him, but the armor and missile block chance, I guess, doesn't actually get the missile block chance on the Dark Pegasus, even realize, but that's going to be very rough if the Archmage of Life routes. We'll put the Dark Elves in a pretty good position here, but let's see. White Lions pushing through. Infantry-wise, it's going reasonably well for the High Elves, but with Murderous Prowess, those Black Art up to 45 melee attack with 44 weapon strength, they will just out-trade these Puremain Company despite all the missiles on both sides. I mean, very bloody affair, no doubt, here in the center with the Supreme Sorceress supporting. But that Murderous Prowess is such a nice damage spike for a Halberd unit like that when it's fighting other infantry. And the Master also able to now finish off the Life Mage here. Got Cold One Knights pressuring the back line on those Silver Helms. Cavalry-wise, Dark Riders chasing some routing Lyrian Reavers. Ooh, a nasty Pit of Shades here in the back line as well. It's the rallying Rangers and the Archers left still in combat. Scourge Runners moving into melee. So it's all-front offensive for Dark Elves. Archmage falls. And things are looking pretty good for Bougelicious. Let's see. Where are the costumes? The Rangers have new cats. I mean, all of the elves, the Dark Elves are dressed as goths. It's literally the goths and the preps. You know, like, didn't you guys ever have a goth that was dressed as a prep for Halloween? That happened a few times in my school, actually. It was always super interesting. It's like, oh, the emo girl is wearing a pink, you know, pink skirt and, like, regular makeup, like glam makeup. It's just interesting. So, yeah, it's the preps and the emos. The goths, you know. High Elves trying to hold out here, but the goths are relentless. The visible goths. Visigoths. Yeah, at least we know some Knife Ears are going to win this one. And also, lots of elves will die, so ultimately everyone wins. The elves win by winning. We win by watching the elves die. All of the various gods of all the different factions, I would think, would approve of this wanton slaughter of elven kind. So there you go. We've got now another Pit of Shades here being unleashed on that Silverin Guard. Spell resistance will help them to a degree against that damage, but still it's going to be all right. But the High Elves are not giving up. They're not going quietly into this good night. Still got a couple of cavalry units finding those isolated missile targets and shutting them down. Scourge Runners so far away and pretty much out of ammunition at this point. If they could somehow maybe burst down this Master, the Black Art are still going to be a significant problem. But yeah, if the High Elf Cavalry was somehow able to shut down all these Dark Shards as well, but like here, those Reavers take a couple of critical volleys. Not able to get through to the Dark Shards. These Reavers also get routed by the Master directly in combat, so not quite enough left at the end of the day by the High Elves. It's definitely a valiant attempt. It's getting close. Watch the last stand of these preps as they charge in. I have to say, I love the blue cloaks on these Black Guards here. Definitely looks just fantastic. Good thing High Elves are a Dark Elf counter, right? Isha isn't happy about this. That's probably true. That's probably true. Very well played by Boojilicious there. Just a nice, well-executed rush with some different components, leading to a beautifully balanced dish of pain. The Scourge Runner Chariots, of course, paying out well. Black Ark Corsairs initially having some good trades, then kind of getting wrecked, but that's okay. They are an expensive meat shield, but ultimately can still be sort of a meat shield in a way. Both the Dark Shards perform quite nicely. Dark Riders also decent job chasing routing units, and then the Dread Spears and Bleak Swords also do well. The High Elf side, the Archmage of Life on the Dragon is definitely a big risk, and it ended up definitely biting the High Elves pretty badly. The rest of the build was executed okay. I mean, White Lion Infantry had a little bit of a tough time, but even the Rangers, despite their struggles, managed to get some value. And I mean, despite like these missile units still being relatively healthy, they were able to kill most of the rest of the army fairly effectively. I mean, I guess the Black Guard were still pretty good as well. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on as I update the scoreboard here. We'll pop in a point for Boojilicious and go to the next replay. So we don't give any spoilers away. Do this, and let's transition back over. This time, Boojilicious coming to the helm of the Vampire Coast. He's got a melee admiral. Of course, I should have mentioned probably at the start, this is a generic Lords only tournament. There's no legendary Lords allowed in this tournament. So, you know, just for fun, I thought as the sort of the costume party theme, we could all just come as our favorite generic Lords. So, yeah, the Halberd Admiral is definitely inferior to the Pistol Admiral, everyone knows, but nonetheless, he is here. He's got some decent items also. This, I don't know if he actually brought any of them, but there you go. We've also got some deck guns here. Looks like a whole bunch of animated Hulks, some Prometheans backing him up, Depth Guard, Bombers, pistols, and regular deckhands as well. So, huge horde of undead. Looking very spooky on this Halloween, Hexenacht. We've also got more Goths, Supreme Sorceress of Death, Harpies, Dark Riders, got some Dark Shards, Bleak Swords up front, and then the two Bolt Throwers, smart pick, Cold One Knights at the back. Yeah, the Bombers are I think also got a significant price increase with the mod, or maybe a significant damage nerf. I guess we'll see. They're about to get within range to start dealing some damage, but still taking some damage in return. Dark Shards are going to come into range here, and if Boojilicious can press his advantage here well enough to win, we'll just take the series outright and move on to the final. But Dark Elf build definitely has some teeth. Yeah, it is kind of just YOLOing in, but yeah, the bombs, I mean, not quite one-shotting those Bleak Swords, but pretty close. Still very, very effective, certainly. And the shooting of the Prometheans also kind of hitting the Supreme Sorceress up in the air, but Harpies are going to drop in maybe a little bit late on those bombs, but better late than never. They managed to at least get home and get on them here. The Dark Shards, Bolt Fiends with their extra range, and Shield Breaker. I guess Shield Breaker doesn't really matter. Do Vampire Coast have any shielded units? I don't actually know, but regardless, the extra shielding, and I believe they have a little bit longer range as well, will help. Although, oh man, here come the bombs. Bombs getting close in the danger zone. Nice drop on these Harpies to get on those deck guns. Nice high value target there. And the Bolt Fiends and other ranged units have been focusing decently. We've got anti-large shots from this Reaper Bolt Thrower landing on the Lamprey's Revenge, and the Supreme Sorceress also just drops down in here to do a ton of damage. Support this one Haggard Peak Sword, somehow just fully surrounded by Depth Guard, zombies, crabs. They're still holding out like true elves that they are. I love the orange color scheme on these Dark Elves, by the way. Holy cow, how have I never seen this up close before? That is just fantastic. Looks really, really nice, actually. Anyway, yeah, the Vampire Coast continuing to fight, and it looks like this will start to eventually turn against the Dark Elves, as I would expect. I mean, that is a lot of value there from the zombie pirates. And the Dark Riders, Bleak Swords, which had been helping, definitely run out of steam eventually. But let's see here. Harpies coming through, getting on those deck guns. So besides this pocket, pretty much everything else is going quite poorly for the Vampire Coast. Animated Hulk's taking quite a bit of damage from those Dark Shards. The Dark Shards able to survive combat long enough to continue falling back. Some nice kiting here. Falling back with multiple missile infantry units. Continue to screen with the Bleak Swords and just in general keep that missile pressure up as long as possible. Crabs are starting to rush through, but the zombies are running out of steam. And Scurvy Dog's taking some crumbling damage. Trying to get back. They might be able to maybe silence that bolt thrower if they hurry, but nope. Oh man, like right as they're charging in, that's so painful. They all just crumble away, which, you know, I say it's painful. It's actually not painful at all for me. I might have, you know, done a little something, but that's a story for another day. A little too spooky for this, but oh, nice Wind of Death unleashed down the line here. Not overcast, but still does a solid amount of damage. Those Dark Shards doesn't kill any of their unit models, unfortunately, though, so their killing power is still at full. Ladder is very busy right now. Lots of players. That's great, honestly. That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't been playing ladder much. I typically don't play ladder much, but Vampire Coast having a pretty tough time here. There are a few high-value units still remaining, but massive concave Dark Elf missiles is effective enough to counter skirmish. And who would have thought crossbow and shield beats bomb? There you go. See how it goes with real crumbling. Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. Like, you definitely feel the real crumbling. And there it is. Looks like the Vampire Coast is going to throw in the towel. They may have been able to grind it out a little bit longer there, but hard to say. Interesting choice. I mean, yeah, for the Vampire Coast to choose not to take any artillery at all, I think is an aggressive choice. Dark Elves are one of those factions that it's like Carronades. I think they're, what are they, 50 more cost? Regularly, I don't know with the mod. I don't think they would have increased in cost really, because I think they're fine. But they do trade pretty well against the Elf Bolt Throwers, from what I remember. A little bit of RNG. Artillery fights are always a gamble on either side, because sometimes you just get completely screwed. But, yeah, I mean, to, like, go with the long range of the deck guns, but then not take regular cannon? I don't know. Interesting. Hard to say, but let's go on. Let me get the scoreboard updated. That is going to be a victory for Giamma, so that'll even up at a 1-1, and we'll be going to a game 3 on that. So let's, it's like so. And here. Okay. And for this last one, we've got a matchup that is near and dear to my heart. Nurgle versus Empire. Be really interesting. This Empire build has a lot of mobility and a lot of skirmish mobility. 3 war wagons with a grenade launcher as well. Pretty serious stuff. We've got 1 silver bullet, the regular, regiment renowned handgun rather. 2 regular swordsmen, 1 regiment renowned swordsman, the Sigmar's Sons, Huntsman General. This is a very interesting choice. I wonder if he's going for some direct fire synergy here with that Arrow of Akshi. Oil Flask, Hail of Fire. Yes, he actually brought Oil Flask in a tournament game. That's great. And then, of course, Lore of Fire to support all that. We've got Knights of the Blazing Sun just to keep in theme and in synergy. And then some regular spearmen. Looks like some Furies. We've got Warhounds with poison. Some Exalted Plague Bears here. Barons of the Bog. Exalted Sorcerer, Lord of Nurgle. I mean, no, that's not right. It's the Chaos Sorcerer, Lord of Nurgle. Soul Grinder. Yeah, what is that? 3? No, 2 Exalted Plague Bears. Demon Spew. Marauders. Nurglings. War wagons immediately going to be caught up by hounds, although they are pulling back. They're not really going to take much damage from the hounds, and they will just allow these Knights of Blazing Sun to get in here and most chivalrously lance the foul beasts. Just immediately crush the unit, and yeah, probably they won't come back after taking that much damage that quickly, but it's hard to say. This other unit also kind of getting caught out in the open field here, just gets wrecked on the charge. I don't even know if there's any Kindle Flame procs there from like Fireball or anything else, but these Furies also drop in, and the Silver Bullets are able to win somehow. I don't know, maybe they just got enough supporting fire, or maybe the War Wagons are shooting in here, maybe the Plague Mortar actually landed a shot on their own Furies. Wasn't exactly paying attention, but some really nice hit and run cycle charges in the front. Just crump those Nurglings super hard with the Knights of the Blazing Sun. And of course, the Huntsman General, Arrow of Akshi does give flaming damage. Hail of Fire does give flaming damage. Also applies to melee attacks, even though it is kind of a missile buff with the extra reload skill. It does benefit melee units as well. Interesting to not see a Warrior Priest just to kind of complete the trifecta of Empire flaming characters here, but there you go, a little bit of a fireball. And the Plague Mortar still continuing to mostly whiff. A couple of key hits there on those silver bullets, but the Knights of the Blazing Sun at this point don't really have a great response. There's not a ton of armor-piercing damage, besides the missile damage from the Exalted Plague Bearers and like the Soul Grinder fighting in melee. Not a ton of AP to deal with the Knights of the Blazing Sun. I mean, that said, they are only 100 armor compared to other Empire cavalry, and will end up taking some damage in an attrition fight, but as long as they can stay moving, they'll be very effective here. It's like a nasty Plague Breath there, although the Silver Bolts are still managing to hang on to their leadership. Knights of the Blazing Sun, Sorcerer Lord just charges straight in, kind of forces a little blob there. That is going to allow now Nurgle to attack on a number of different fronts. This Knight of the Blazing Sun getting perpetually chased by the Bog Barons is not great. And then the Flagellants in the open field just get straight up charged by the Demon Spew. And in one of the ugliest fights you've ever seen, both these units are just horrendously but unspeakably ugly, you could say. Gonna go a certain type of way. I haven't even really been paying attention to Grenade Outriders, but they are technically here. The Bog Barons are gonna maybe try and pressure them, maybe try and pressure those Silver Bullets, but they kind of help turn this fight around and make those Flagellant sacrifice not completely in vain. Another Plague Breath there, trying to finish off the Silver Bullets. And this Knight of the Blazing Sun ends up just kind of dying in melee, sort of. Lots of stuff. Looks like the Plague Mortar also landing some shots directly on them. Okay so far. Hard to say. Both sides have, been doing all right. Looks like those Exalted Plague Bearers were able to get a nice clean volley on those War Wagons and rout one unit just fully. But let's see. Right now, that Sorcerer Lord's going to have to be careful. He's getting focused pretty aggressively by the War Wagons and also by the Huntsman General himself. A little bit of Hail of Fire. He's going to toss... oh, man, please tell me there's like a Burning Head or something to follow this up with. He did toss the Oil Flask there. I don't think the Flagellants have flaming damage right now. Yeah, so... Fortunately, it does look like that's going to be more or less wasted. It is kind of hilarious to use that Oil Flask and then, like, charge the unit with Knights of the Blazing Sun, especially with Kindle Flame active. What is that, like a 60% weakness to fire? It's a little bit janky to try and use in practice, but, yeah, 50% flame weakness, 48% speed. So you could actually get 70% increase to fire damage on like a charge from Knights of the Blazing Sun or whatever else. Very interesting stuff and some potentially crazy good synergy, but right now, the question is, will the Empire be able to hold? Nurgle's kind of starting to run out of steam a little bit. They didn't have a ton of killing power to begin with, but like here, these Exalted Plague Bearers just getting fully surrounded by Flagellants. This is ideal situation for these Flagellants. I mean, they're fighting Chaos Demons. They get to, bop them in the head with maces, pop their zits with the spikes on the end of their flanges and whatnot. And just in general have a great time, fulfill their fantasies. Get it? Anyway. Yeah, more focus from the War Wagons too. As soon as the Sorcerer Lord comes into range, just going to be hit by a bunch of hurting armor-piercing missiles. And this whole time, too, the Soul Grinder's just been firing. Arguably, I mean, I guess he can't really terror out the Flagellants. Could be using his armor-piercing damage maybe against some of the other stuff in melee, or just trying to, like, pressure the War Wagons. He does have 75 speed, so he could actually catch the War Wagons with the Soul Grinder, although he's going to take a lot of damage in the process. But You're going to take a lot of damage in the process regardless of what he does, considering the wagon's ammunition and power here. Love the pick of the Huntsman General, too. That is such an awesome pick. But more plague shots landing kind of on the demons. And it's looking pretty grim for Nurgle at this point. Yeah. It's hard to say, really. I mean, I have my own thoughts on balance, and ultimately, I just wanted to see how this would go, if we'd see some more varied and interesting matchups with this mod enabled, and so far, I'm pretty happy. I mean, I know it's a super small sample size, but I am planning on doing more tournaments with this mod going forward, especially once I can figure out the spectation situation, or maybe we'll just have to do them all offline. If that's the case, that's fine too. But Nurgle has some issues dealing with war wagons. That's true. That is true. Especially considering that Nurgle Knights are actually too slow to catch them. Like other factions, Chaos Knights are the same speed as war wagons, so once they hit their charge animation, they can catch them. Nurgle, on the other hand, I mean, the Toads are just straight up too slow. I think the Chaos Knights, even with their charge animation, might not be able to catch war wagons, so it is definitely a big pain for them to deal with. It's a tough situation. Best thing you can do is just try and like heal through the ammo as best you can. Maybe try and block, use some missile resistance and whatnot. But no. Unfortunately, as much as we all might say land battles and domination would have separate balancing, it's just not a realistic reality to ever expect Creative Assembly to try and do that. But as Soul Grinder is actually going to be surprisingly hard to kill. I'm looking at what's left in the Empire army, and I'm starting to get a little bit worried that they're just not going to be able to actually kill the Soul Grinder here. But let's see. I mean, maybe these Knights of the Blazing Sun, if they can cycle charge enough, but like nothing else has ammunition left. I guess the Bright Wizard going 2v1 with the Huntsman General would be a good way of doing it, but it doesn't look like he has a charge order in there right now. It looks like he's got an order to maybe go after the Sorcerer Lord instead, which is an odd choice. But Vaulted Plague Bearers are going down. The War Wagons can come try and surround, get a little bumper cars here. Hail of Fire is popped, which doesn't do anything for the Knights of Blazing Sun, literally, but gives some extra flaming damage to those flagellants. And the Knights of the Blazing Sun do get a little bit of a charge there, able to get some tiny bit of burst, and more importantly, it pulls the Soul Grinder away. The Huntsman General is able to get like 1 or 2 more shots here, or getting clubbed in melee again. Let's see. I don't know. Nurgle's not going quietly in this good night. Throwing axes would be a good choice for sure. I would definitely just bring a lot of throwing axes in this matchup in general. Throwing axes have always been good against Empire heavy cavalry and other threats, but yeah, I agree, Bubba. The balance for domination and land battles isn't that far apart anymore, so I think, I mean, like, the capture weight situation is one specific thing to domination, and that's kind of the only way for them to balance them separately. But thankfully, I mean, the focus on value trading in domination right now makes it seem like the longer games for domination, just it seems like a lot of the same stuff is good in both, right? But yeah, and it's okay for some factions to be inherently better at one mode or the other. Like dwarfs, by design, are probably never going to be an S-tier domination faction, but they certainly have some good matchups, and on certain maps in domination they can be very good. And obviously they're still what they always have been in land battles, right? So yeah. Longer games for domination was a massive improvement. Look at that point-blank fireball too from this Bright Wizard, just duking it out. Also, let's have a cheer for these war wagons. The Sigmar Suns also fighting in this late game here. Hail of Fire on them, just in case there's any healing tricks of Nurgle in this late game. But both these Nurgle single entities have just been dying death by 1,000 cuts. While the Huntsman General still does have a little bit of ammunition left to fire. I mean, I think he literally just fired his last shot there. But also not a pushover. 4340, 360 weapon strength. Definitely get in here and get some work done. The Bright Wizard also, 50 armor on that Bard Warhorse. Ah, yes. Oh, he missed the oil flask. That is unfortunate. But would have been hilarious to get that oil flask in here and get that hail of fire. So he brought the oil flask. I don't know if it actually ended up benefiting him at all. But certainly he won in our hearts. So bravo, sir. Bravo. Very well played to Boojilicious as well. It's an awesome series. Really nice back and forth. And yeah, I mean, Nurgle was almost able to outlast there. The Soul Grinder is definitely pretty solid. I don't know if I would take 2 in this matchup, but 1 definitely can be pretty solid. Exalted Plague Bears did a nice job overall. The mobility for Nurgle was a little bit of a letdown, and the Nurglings up front just getting crumped immediately at the start was tough. Knights of Blazing Sun definitely paid for themselves. And both these Empire characters did a great job also. War Wagons are still very strong. I mean, Empire is sort of, in my opinion, one of the more unique things about the Empire is their mobile firepower. So, I mean, War Wagons having 0 melee capability, but really strong missile capability kind of fits into that to a degree. The grenade launchers were used okay. I mean, they're a little bit of a tricky unit to operate, especially in a situation like this, but they do all right. And then the Empire Infantry, Flagellants, do a great job supporting. I really like Flagellants against any of the Monogods. Factions just trade nicely against demons. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next series. Bear with me 1 second, guys. I'm going to put on some music as I get things updated, and right back. Back now. Yes, that's right, folks. Giamma coming in with the Dark Elves versus Khorne. Let's get straight to it, folks. The final is a best of 5, so we've got a few replays to get through. 3 at a minimum, 5 at a maximum. Let's take a look at the builds here. Coming in with a Dark Sorceress, Supreme Sorceress of Dark on the Dragon. It's an interesting choice. I think Malekith is just straight up better. First, like a similar cost, I'd have to actually look and remember, but an interesting choice nonetheless. Got a couple of Scourge Runner chariots here. Dark Riders about to clash in the woods, including the Raven's Heralds. Are they landed on the ground? That is a very interesting choice. Let's see. In the back, we've got some Cold One Knights here, more repeater crossbows, Crows of Cain, and then, yes, lots of bleak swords. For Khorne, looks like Exalted Bloodthirster up in the sky, some Marauder Horsemen, Fleshhounds, yeah, some Warhounds here. Big mobile force, we've got some Furies up in the air, single skull cannon, a bunch of Marauders on the ground, Minotaurs of Khorne in the back, and then some Fleshhounds and Marauder Horsemen. So Like we've seen with Khorne before, lots of kind of mid-tier mobile forces with a couple of elites supporting, and then a basic ground force of infantry. Yeah, looking pretty good so far. Skull Cannon is taking some shots and also taking some shots from and against these Scourge Runners. Right now is actually doing a nice job kind of counter-pressuring here. The Dark Riders suffer a pretty terrible fate in the woods, being eaten by Fleshhounds, Warhounds, and Fleshhounds. And then, a nice charge. I love this mobility pressure from Khorne to come in here with the Exalted Bloodthirster just straight into the Cold One Knights, going after something that could be a potential threat later in the game and just smashing them decisively. But gotta look out for that missile damage. Dark Elves responding in kind. I have no idea what that charge was from that dragon. That was the worst charge animation I've ever seen. Like, this is not even close. Nice try. But the Exalted Bloodthirster now in a position where he stays and fights for any length of time, he's going to take a lot of missile damage. So really, he should just cut and run here. But maybe not. Here come the Minotaurs and the Fleshhounds also pressuring Dark Elf mobile units. Are still able to get some effective fire. In the meantime, looks like we're going to see a Soul Stealer as well. The Minotaurs choose to instead go after that Supreme Sorceress, who is herself in significant trouble with all the Fleshhounds. And the Minotaurs actually looks like they're going to nope out of that engagement. Very interesting as the Skull Cannon continues to fire. Khorne warriors, Marauders, definitely not warriors, continue to pressure, although they will just straight up lose to Bleak Swords in a clean 1v1, unless, I think, Mod made them more expensive, but I don't think it nerfed their stats. I think they'd probably still just win that fight straight up. Yeah. Yeah, let's see here. The dragon is doing okay. Right now, the Exalted Bloodthirster are also just fighting in the woods here. The mobility pressure from Khorne is pretty significant. Skull Cannon's used up all its ammunition at this point. It's going to have to come fight in melee, but the Dark Elves are starting to run out of some steam. Their mobile units have definitely taken some damage, and now trying to dish some damage against these Minotaurs, who once again find the Dragon Sorceress. They get a nice surround in here. The Khorne Horsemen also come support. Looks like we've got a Horn of Khorne in here, juicing up melee attack of all these units as they fight and die for the Blood God. A little bit of ammo regeneration on the Skull Cannon means it'll be able to continue firing, and he's providing a little bit of pressure against those Scourge Runners, but seeing as the Scourge Runners are out of ammo. Ooh, that was a nice breath attack. Almost missed that from the Exalted Bloodthirster. Now up to 871 weapon strength, 77 charge bonus, just a couple of hits, and he's able to pretty much finish off the Supreme Sorceress. Also sets her on fire, I believe. No? Yes? It should nerf her healing rate from Soul Stealers, and considering you only have a certain amount of Soul Stealers you can cast in a game, reducing the healing rate from that is actually pretty significant. Exalted Bloodthirster are also trying to just maybe charge these Scourge Runners. They're almost out of ammunition anyway, but if he can just kill a few more of their unit models, the Black Dragon going to respond with its own breath there. Does some pretty good damage, but these tattered Khorne forces are just barely winning out and starting to be in a position to support. Likewise, though, these Dark Riders, clutch volleys in here. Will they be able to finish off the Exalted Bloodthirster? Let's keep them in the background as the Marauders fight with the support of the Skull Cannon. Skull Cannon turning to fire. Not sure exactly what it hit there, but it's definitely something. Khorne a little bit ahead on the balance of power at this point, but it's going to be anyone's game, I think, still. They do have some Marauder Horsemen coming back way over there, some more over here, relatively healthy, and with plenty of ammunition. I mean, these guys are literally completely healthy, so they should be able to get in and clean up a lot of these tattered Dark Elf units. Let's see what they can do here. A little bit of a Soul Stealer as well, going to be popped. Some good damage to the Exalted Bloodthirster. Khorne spell resistance means it's not going to do a crazy amount of damage, but it will at least finish off one of those Marauders there. Fleshhounds getting through, trying to get a nice block there with those Bleak Swords to keep them from getting to the precious Dark Riders, who managed to send that Exalted Bloodthirster. Oh man, I very rarely have seen a demonic unit actually recover its leadership and stop, stop its instability. But there, the Exalted Bloodthirster was able to recover. Horn of Khorne, Deathbringer active, just some nice buffs. A little bit of a breath attack might be enough to finish it off. Let's see. Its leadership is holding, dipping, pops back up. But it's, yeah, right around the threshold of instability, and it looks like the Exalted Bloodthirster, oh man, he's like really teetering on the edge right now. But the Skull Cannon is fighting and replenishing ammo, and it also heals itself. So at this late stage, with like the one Horseman and the Skull Cannon together, could probably do enough to finish off this Supreme Sorceress. Like, their ammunition needs to all go into the Dragon right now, and just focus fire right there rather than trying to do anything else, really. Ultimately, if the Supreme Sorceress goes down, the rest of these elves are probably just going to rout. Nice to see the Minotaurs still fighting, still cleaning up some routing units there in the distance, which they definitely can do. And certainly not that the Horsemen of Khorne shouldn't just clean up some of these tattered units, because they can. The high charge anti-infantry, certainly it will be a bloody, brutal good time for them charging into these tattered bleak swords. And like I said, with the Skull Cannon supporting, it's really efficient, actually. But there you go, the flaming throwing axes hitting the Supreme Sorceress once again. Skull Cannon gets a shot, takes down a few more of the Dark Riders models. Smart to pull that Soul Stealer away from the Skull Cannon, but it looks like, I'm not sure if the Supreme Sorceress tried to land on the Skull Cannon there, but it actually landed on the Marauder Horsemen. Or sorry, the Marauders, which is a little bit of a mistake. How is this Exalted Bloodthirster still alive, man? I forget this thing has Gore Feast also. Yeah, I absolutely forgot that Gore Feast. Did you give him this in the mod? I forgot if he had this or not, but that is, I mean, it's helping him sustain through the instability damage, which, I mean, I don't know if it would have ended up mattering all that much anyway if he would have died or survived, because the last of the damage here to the Supreme Sorceress was dealt by the Skull Cannon and those Marauders. So the Skull Cannon comes in super clutch here, actually. And I love that this thing is like one of the main factors that ends up carrying Khorne here. Even manages to pay for itself on damage output. Yes, he gave it to him. I was going to say, I don't think he had that baseline, but I definitely agree with giving it to him. I mean, he's an expensive enough single entity that's super risky without self-healing. So even with that self-healing, he's still probably a risk for sure in a lot of situations. But yeah, let's fast forward a little bit through the rest of this game as the Skull Cannon chases off the Supreme Sorceress. Maybe it's going to get a Soul Stealer here, and it's going to try and run back towards the rest of this army. Suddenly things turn against Khorne and the balance of power, really. Yeah, looks like the Elves are able to actually rally all their forces together. Khorne just runs out of leadership on their Marauders, and then the Skull Cannon is forced to fight here in the woods in the very late game. Oh man, it did get a hit on the Supreme Sorceress though, so this is going to be super interesting. I don't know, actually. I think the Dark Riders have enough ammunition that this could maybe go a certain way, but the longer the Skull Cannon fights in melee, the more health it will replenish with its own Gore Feast. So let's see. Oh, point blank blast to the face of the Supreme Sorceress, and she routs. Wow, what a close game, man. What a crazy close game here. I really have no idea who's going to win this at this point. The Skull Cannon's got a really good shot here, though, because of the self-healing in melee and the fact that, you know, those big sweeping animations are going to hit a bunch of unit models all at the same time. It also is replenishing ammo the longer it fights in melee, so it can just turn and shoot these Dark Riders, like right now. Maybe. Maybe. Yep, there we go. Come on. Come on. Yes! And swing and a miss. That's fine. It is what it is. But now charging into those bleak swords, and I think the Skull Cannon chads it out. Yes! Yes, the Skull Cannon hard carry. Yes! That just made my whole holiday. I'm not gonna lie, Konos, you're officially my hero. You know, got some really awesome games here, but the Skull Cannon carry there with the finish gets another 400 points there in the late game. That's crazy, man. Absolutely nuts. And outperforms the Minotaurs, actually. And to see Exalted Bloodthirster does a great job. 100 kills even, 2,500 damage value. Fleshhounds are still what they always have been. And the Marauder Horsemen in tandem makes a great pair, especially with these big supporting single entities and power units. Yeah, who would have thunk? Oh, that was awesome, man. That made me super happy. 3,000 damage value on the Dragon Sorceress. Kind of to be expected. Both the Scourge Runners probably got some really good value as well. The rest of the army is largely here just to support, but the Raven's Herald's getting it eaten immediately in the forest there was really rough, and ultimately, had they been just some regular Dark Riders and you distribute the rest of that value around, maybe it ended up differently for the Dark Elves, but hard to say, certainly. Just an awesome game, though. Yeah, that was a ridiculously awesome performance by the Skull Cannon, so we're going to have to award a point to... to Konos on that one, and gladly I will do so. That was a beautiful, beautiful performance. Let's go on to the next game here. Very quickly get this loaded in. And we've got some more Empire. This time Empire versus Dark Elves on the Southern Chaos Wastes. Okay, select that and this time Giamma coming in with the Empire against the Dark Elves. Once again, triple War Wagons, and we've also got the Sunmaker under the Aberland color scheme. Archlector leading the way. Swordsmen, we've got some Spearmen, Huntsmen, Jade Wizard. Oh yeah, duh. I'm commenting like, oh, why didn't he bring Malekith in the last game? Duh, that's right. It's generic lords only, so... Standing in for Malekith, we've got a Supreme Sorceress of Dark Magic up on a dragon. This time did bring the Opal Amulet for damage resistance, which is definitely smart. Power of Darkness, Chillwind there. We've got Dark Riders and some Doomfire Warlocks over on the side. Crows of Cain there. Scourge Runner Chariots. Bolt Thrower in the back. Let's see. What is this? Knights of the Blazing Sun? Nope, just Empire Knights. Gonna have to defend against this quick rush from the Dark Elves. A little bit of in and out from those Doomfire Warlocks, and the Huntsmen, man, just making their presence felt big time as they savage those repeater crossbows. The rockets also raining out to the Dark Elf infantry there in the distance, actually just wrecking one bolt thrower pretty much completely there. Nice breath attack into the Huntsman. Doesn't do a crazy amount of damage. Definitely something. And the War Wagons all need to be focusing on... yeah, right now they're like counter-skirmishing the Scourge Runners. I'm not really sure, actually. But one War Wagon has been focused by the Scourge Runners. A little bit unfortunate for the Empire. They've lost 2 unit models there already, so I don't know if that unit will come back. But regardless, oh, Archlector, what are you doing, buddy? Archlector getting way out of position, super deep into the Dark Elf lines. He pops all of his stuff. He's going to pop a little Soulfire here as well. Do a lot of damage, especially to the Doomfire Warlocks, but ultimately this is not going to be worth it if he pays for it with his life. Dwellers Below is also popped here just to really send home the message, and you know, maybe if this is able to actually turn into an isolation, the Archlector will trade okay. He's got Mace of Hellsturm, Hammer of Sigmar, so he's got way juiced up stats, 54, 448, and majority armor piercing damage. Really? What is the heck is giving him armor piercing damage? Oh, maybe, I think you just gave him base armor piercing damage, didn't you? That's right. I totally forgot about that in the mod, since he has a dual wield weapons, right? Anyway. Yeah, Archlector actually trading very, very well, because of that, but still doesn't necessarily want to just take a straight 1v1 against a dragon, so he chooses to nope out of there very wisely, try and support against some of this cavalry. Empire Knights are taking significant damage and getting outvalued, but holding for the time being. Hopefully that'll allow those Huntsmen to get into position to contribute. Certainly things are looking very tight elsewhere in the battlefield. We've got War Wagons back from route and coming to try and contribute here. If they can get into a position to shoot the dragon, shoot these Doomfire Warlocks, you know, any of these high-value targets would be valid. But a Soul Stealer now comes in for the Archlector and also hits these Empire Knights as well. Warhammers are famous for smacking armor. Okay. Makes sense. I mean, he does have dual wield, which it never made sense to me that he never really gets a benefit from having dual wield. Like, he doesn't get anti-infantry damage. He doesn't get armor piercing. Like, he doesn't get anything from having dual wield. So I agree with giving him something. I probably would have given him just like a plus 20 anti-infantry bonus or something, but I mean, yeah. Makes sense. Units with hammers get AP. I actually like it a lot. But it makes the Archlector quite a bit better, too. He's like an armor-piercing support lord now, rather than just being like a pure support lord only. But let's see here. Spearman moving through. A little bit of frame lag here as well as the Archlector gets terrified away, drops one more hot Soulfire, and yeah, quite a bit of frame lag there. No idea what's causing that. Hopefully it's not coming through too badly on stream, but yeah, Spearman continuing to hold for the time being. Archlector does come back from route. He might be able to get a little bit of a charge in here and try and salvage the situation, but yeah, Cairns of Cain there in the background, getting a little bit of self-healing. The Dark Elves are starting to run out of steam a little bit. Definitely their units are starting to get low, and like the Scourge Runners have taken significant damage without having used up all of their ammunition. I mean, I guess the same is true of the War Wagons. But Huntsman now coming back in the fight, able to get a couple of clutch volleys there. The Scourge Runners just like charging the War Wagons in melee. That's hilarious. Valid tactic also. But now this is clutch. These War Wagons kiting this dragon away. Dragon pops the Opal Amulet to try and resist some of the damage, but even still, the War Wagons will continue firing in melee, so they might actually just win this because they'll be able to shoot the dragon to death. But let's kind of keep that in the corner of the screen there as the War Wagons attempt to pull away. The rest of the army of the Dark Elves surging forward, trying to clean up last pockets of Empire resistance, but these missile units are resilient as they come back from route. Turn around and fight back. They'll continue to contribute here. Nice Dwellers below also. I noticed the single target damage of Dwellers isn't quite as much as it was before, but still it's pretty good. Will help clean up both of those units there. And yeah, did you cut that in half, I want to say, Loopy? Which is definitely the right call, but it looks like it's going to be a victory for the Empire. So Giamma with 2 Empire wins today. Just an absolute thing of beauty. I have to say, I'm very happy about that. So here, a lot of it is going to come down to, yeah, War Wagons get some really excellent value. The Archlector trades pretty much at his cost, I would think. And then, yeah, Huntsman also gets some really nice value there. The Sunmaker able to stay and use up all of its ammunition. Almost 1,500 damage dealt. Very nice performance. For Konos, love the use of the Black Dragon. Once again, very effective. Almost 2,500 damage value there. Scourge Runners, as we have come to expect, are very good also. Bolt Thrower. Got, yeah, basically everything else fails, but those power units are powerful for a reason. Very good stuff, and we do have a series on our hands, folks. That's right, I've got to update the scoreboard now, pop a point in for Giamma. Now we go on to game 3, so switch on over to the screen as I load that up here. And we'll go on to the next map. The Sword of Torvald. And this time, Giamma's taking the High Elves. Konos has gone with Slaanesh. And we've got that double Exalted Keeper of Secrets build again. This time with Otters and, yeah, Hellscourge, Hellstriders, regular Hellstriders, 3 Furies. Nice spread, fast attack here with some corner Vanguards. Look at that. Thing of beauty. For the High Elves here, coming in with an Archmage of Death in there. Shadow Walkers, very interesting choices. Silver Guards up front. Pure Main Company have also got some silver helms with shields. So the Shadow Walkers, at least in theory, should be able to get some really good DPS against the Keepers of Secrets, but that's also going to require them to get within range of the Keepers of Secrets and maintain a firing line, not get dodged. You know, there's a lot that goes into that. But just immediately the Furies are going to rush in here. And I would think the Furies would do okay against the Shadow Walkers. Those are Shadow Walkers, right? Or Shadow Warriors? Shadow Walkers, yeah, because of their anti-infantry bonus. They should trade okay, but even still, I don't know, it's probably not very cost efficient for the I don't know. It's hard to say, really, for either unit. But anyway, big attack from the Slaanesh cavalry. They're going to do a quick hit and run on those spearmen, immediately pull away before the Silver Helms can respond. And that's kind of going to be the tail of the tape a little bit, although the Shadow Walkers have got to be careful not to get caught. Interesting to see these Silver Helms push forward and just, like, block this huge contingent. There was a Dwellers right now from, like, Archmage of Life here, or some other big AoE blob spell to just drop on all those infantry. Could get a huge amount of value right off the bat, but looks like the Shadow Walkers are just kind of set to fire will at this point. Keepers of Secrets do manage to come in, and I would expect them to get less healing against a faction like High Elves, where they're not going to be able to feast on as much low leadership, but Phantasmagoria gets dropped here. Another really nice hard snare. Gets all of these Shadow Walkers. They all get rushed by Furies and the Keepers of Secrets and whatnot, and it's looking quite rough. The second Phantasmagoria is going to be used, so I love that double net. I mean, I say I love it. It is pretty brutal, all things considered, but both of these units back-to-back, just using that. It also does a significant amount of damage as well, so Archmage is forced to just kind of helplessly watch from the sky as that Slaanesh rush devours 4 of her army. Those Shadow... Sorry, guys. Just 1 second, please. Someone's just repeatedly calling me and not getting the message. So, anyway, yeah, so that was pretty devastating. I mean, that was a lot of value lost there on that catch and charge. So the double Phantasmagoria build here looking pretty solid. And the Furies charging in here. Their armor-piercing damage more than enough. I mean, Pure Main Company, yeah, they're getting creamed on by multiple single entities right now. So let's get in and watch the beautiful ballet of these two keepers as they do their thing against the hapless Elves here. Very appropriate, too, that the Elves should be the one getting slaughtered by these two. Absolutely fantastic. I think we pretty much know the outcome at this point, but let's just soak up some of this beautiful choreography here as the keepers finish things off. Going after the cavalry now. See a little bit of a spirit leech here from the Archmage of Death. Archmage of Death just really hasn't been able to find a place to call home, and I mean, that's just a lot of single entity stopping power, and with plenty of tools to catch and kill whatever ranged you brought to bear as well. Definitely seems like it's a pretty brutal combination of units. Definitely, I really like the Slaanesh build. I might just straight up steal it, to be honest. But Fascination gets popped there. Pavane of Slaanesh even. That it is going to pull the Archmage into an enrage. Although, looks like she's just fighting Furies up in the sky, which is fine. The rest of the ground forces are slowly getting caught up and killed, and that should result in army losses very quickly. Yeah, let's fast forward through the end. And it's a win for Slaanesh. So there you go. Konos able to get a pretty quick rush win there, and that double Phantasmagoria is just so devastating with all those mobile units to catch and kill. The Shadow Walkers basically did nothing, and were more than 3,000 points worth of death. So there you go. One more potentially to get through. If Konos is able to win the next one decisively, he will be the winner for the tournament, but let's get to that. Let me update the scoreboard here for you. And yes, Konos looking pretty nasty right now, so let's go to this one. Can he take home the win, or will Giamma be able to equalize once more? The last map is going to be River Annexon. And this time, Giamma's coming in with Tzeentch against the Wood Elves of Konos. So, very interesting matchup. Historically, I don't know. Tzeentch has a lot going for them here, but Wood Elves also have a lot going for them here. Is that 5 Deepwood Scouts? 4 Eternal Guards with shields, a single Hagbane tip, and then 3 Dark Riders. We've also got a Glady up in the air. for Tzeentch here. And yeah, whole mess of Glade Riders with spears. For Tzeentch, looks like Exalted Lord of Change in the air. A bunch of Marauder Horsemen of Tzeentch here. We've got some Furies. Yeah, front Marauders, some spawns. So pretty typical stuff. It's kind of a Warriors of Chaos Tzeentch build. Like Sarthrel turned into a better flying chicken version of himself. But man, look at the initial volleys from those Deepwood Scouts. Just so devastating right off the bat to those Marauder Horsemen. A huge amount of barrier damage and everything. Deepwood Scouts don't have magic damage baseline, but just great accuracy and DPS does mean they're a pretty nasty unit to try and deal with. Also got some Treekin here, the Regiment Renowned, Firebark Elders, fire resistance be applicable against certain Tzeentch units, but I guess they didn't really take any blues or anything else here. No fire damage really, which, you know, Durthu somewhere is cackling about that, but here we go. Nice little flank attack here by these Glade Riders. They're going to break the barrier of those spawn of Tzeentch and kind of keep them bottled up so that the arrows of the Deepwood Scouts can rain in with surprising accuracy. They won't really get much friendly fire there as they kind of take out those spawns. A little bit of an awakening in the wood as well. So suddenly Tzeentch is like starting to pull back some of their forces and not wanting to get fully counterattacked here. Nice blue fire. Pink fire comes through. Doesn't actually do all that much due to the assistance of the Firebark Elders there. And both of the Furies that came in to attack get enough support to actually continue to fight. They're both going to disintegrate, banish, if you will, which is rough, definitely. They're not going to be able to take advantage of that barrier at all because of that, but certainly Evil Big Bird can continue to fly around here. Could even just dive straight on the side of these Firebark Elders, do a little bit of damage to them. Try and help win that fight, maybe get some damage on those Eternal Guards. Instead, it looks like he's going to try and go up and pressure. Nice dodge there. I don't know if that was intentional. The Glade Lord just full dodges that blue fire. And yeah, the thing about using the Exalted Lord of Change is you really have to be fighting with him in melee to get proper value from him. Like right here, again, I would have definitely been cycle charging these Firebark Elders as much as possible. Or even jump in on this engagement, maybe fight the Gladiator in melee a little bit while you have the Screamers and the Furies, you know, fighting all of this Wood Elf mobility, and it looks like he is going to do just that. Better late than never, I suppose, but the Deepwood Scouts there, you can see in the distance those arrows flying in the background, depending on the resolution that you're watching this. I can definitely see them, and those Deepwood Scouts are just raining all sorts of death and destruction. Backline Glade Riders, once again, kind of form a little mobile missile anvil for the arrows to then hammer in the back of these Marauder Horsemen, do a ton of damage there. Over here, things are looking a little bit better for Tzeentch. They were able to finish off a lot of that Wood Elf cavalry, although a lot of it did come back from route, wasn't chased properly off the side of the map right there. And as a result, these Deepwood Scouts are just feasting on value. Nice Brave on a Threma on one unit that's threatening to break through, and then just look at the DPS, man. There's not even any magic damage there. They're just getting bursted down by arrows in a huge hurry. A little bit of awakening in the wood, debuffing the speed of that Exalted Lord of Change, and yeah, the Tzeentch forces are just having a hard time finding good engagements, having a hard time bypassing these rocks and the defense of the Wood Elves to try and get at those missiles. Not a great day for Tzeentch so far, but we'll see. Definitely have enough power to try and turn it back around. The Fury's jumping in now. And the Lady also charging in, getting a straight engagement against the Exalted Lord of Change. Probably should just stand and fight here, but also smart to maybe pull back to the strength of the spawns. Try and fight with them. Better late than never, I suppose. Definitely could have beaten this little blob of Firebark Elders and those Eternal Guards a little bit earlier if he charged in there, but that's okay. And the pink fire finally is being used again against the right target rather than going after the units next to the Firebark Elders who have that extra fire resistance, going after the archers with that magic damage. These Tzeentch horsemen also could potentially come back here and go for a melee attack while the last of the spears are being occupied. Got some more Tzeentch horsemen threatening some different angles here, but we'll see. I mean, the focus fire might be enough for the Deepwood Scouts to just mow them down on the approach. The one, sort of healthy-ish unit also gets somewhat caught up here. Yeah, a little bit of a tough time, and they just get absolutely hosed by arrows. from those Deepwood Scouts. Things looking pretty grim. Nice little blue fire, though, from the Exalted Lord of Change. Point blank arrows of Khorne also just hits him directly in the face. And now is the time, finally, for Prey of Anathrema, cutting his missile resistance to 0. And the Deepwood Scouts focus on poor, not Sarthrel, Exalted Lord of Change here, who is called Sarthrel on the map. There is one called Sarth, but we all know it's not really Sarth. Anyway, Sarth in some fancy clothes. And with that, Konos will be the victory. The victor for today. I promise I can speak English, guys. He wins the South Sea costume party, utilizing Elves to great effect, and Khorne as well. Saw some wonderful Empire games from Giamma, so definitely he should hold his head up high as well, but just not quite enough from Tzeentch there at the end to prevail over the hippie Elves. Yeah, that nasty presence of Deepwood Scouts. Great use of the terrain there to defend them, and then also Giamma, I think, ultimately made a few mistakes that allowed them to stay online for so long. Probably could have broken up that position a little bit quicker. Be pressure in some different ways, but credit to Konos for sticking to his bows to a degree and just staying true and really utilizing those abilities and timings well. So that's it for today's tournament. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Sorry it was so delayed from the other day, but yeah, it's been quite a bit of fun. Definitely have been enjoying it. We'll definitely look for doing more events with this mod in the future, especially like land battles and stuff. The Warhammer World Championship is going on right now, and that should satisfy all of your domination. I will probably put on some more of my own land battle events, but that's it for tonight. Thank you all so much for coming out. Happy Halloween. Happy